Some of the war magicians were casting low-level forms of anti-magic to allow them and some of their troops to regain some useful vision as they moved aggressively into the newly formed, perfect 6-foot trenches and gun pits in the hot black sand. Arajakal was casting his melting spell, just as he had done on the lead armadillo. Just as Carter was about to depress the trigger for what could only be a lethal 3-round burst, Ansara suddenly became incredibly hot and was getting hotter. The experienced brigadier knew that he would have to drop his weapon, but still managed to put 3 rounds downrange. Affected in accuracy by the intense heat scorching his shoulder, hands and fingers, only one of his shots struck the already wounded fire mage, and this was in the left shoulder. The enchantment on Ansara prevented it from being transformed into slag, but it was useless to Carter, as it lay blue-hot in a pool of liquid black glass. Arajakal stumbled for a moment after the impact of the magical bullet into his shoulder blade. Carter was flying rapidly towards him in the next instant. "I just have to get a little closer," he thought as he skimmed over the unforgiving terrain. Arajakal was desperate. He knew that his reserves of magical power had been severely drained by his bleaching radiance and melt spells. His pursuer was relentless and able. It was clear that he must use the remainder of his mana in a single attempt to destroy the brigadier. The commander of Xor reached a position about 55 memph away and began a deep and intimidating mantra. He was casting Cerebral Blast. Zuvian war magicians were not privileged with this spell until their 13th year of service, and only then with special security clearance. It causes the brain and skull of the victim to explode and cover the immediate area with blood and gore from the head and neck. Arajakal was clutching his now pulsating bright orange ball with both hands and glaring at the target of his spell, Incinerate. Arajakal did not even teach this spell to any of his initiates. It causes the subject to transform instantaneously into a light grey ash. The two master magicians were projecting their will with vigorous determination. Carter finished reverberating his occult phrases, while Arajakal focused and unleashed his last power until sunrise. Carter felt Arajakal's magic attempt to overpower his spiritual self. It was like an insidious burning poison for the soul. He shuddered as he attempted to resist. Arajakal felt brig. Carter's spell, like a short fuse to a powder keg, had been lit within his brain. These spells were usually entirely complete in the blink of an eye. However, both combatants were highly magical resistant. For at least 1.5 seconds, the leaders of both sides of the surrounding conflict tried to remain standing and resist the other's malefic attempt to destroy him. Arajakal had no magic with which to fight the spell, but his natural resilience to the effects of magic meant that the Cerebral Blast did not execute faultlessly. The pain in his head was more disturbing than agonizing. His left arm spasmed and his face tightened as he fell unceremoniously to the sand, which then partially covered his nose. He was suffering a massive stroke. After partially resisting Arajakal's Incinerate spell, Carter had initiated a protection spell to lessen its effect when he caught a light. Translucent light blue flames dancing as they spiraled upwards from every area of his body. His hair and skin were scorching and bubbling,